Okay, with Kristine Spindler Denton, What Are Best Friends For is the screenplay played at the LGBTQ plus film festival. A kind of a romantic comedy, obviously dramatic situations. It's really not. It played at the LGBTQ plus film festival, but it's kind of like it doesn't really talk like you know what I mean. Like it represents this community, of course, but it's just any other story. I guess that's how I read it.
Yeah, I mean that was the goal,
Yeah.
right? Because having friends in that community and family in that community, I think one of the feedback that I consistently get is there's so many stories that are done about that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Focusing on that's the only part of the personality of the
Yeah.
person. And that's just sad to me. And so one of the ideas that I came up with is it's definitely mentioned in the movie, and we know where our main character is at and making some decisions, and her sexuality is brought up, but it's not in any way the main point of this film. And other aspects of her life and what she's going through and how she's growing is, the arc that she needs to go through, as all of us do, in changing our perceptions on life and growing and having an open mindset. She goes through those changes, and that's the focus of the movie. And so I think that, or of the script, so that's what's really, I think, nice for us.
So in the blog interview, you said that your daughters are both in the LGBTQ plus community, and you wrote the screenplay for them.
I did because I felt, when they, came out to me as they got older and talked to me about it, I just felt that I was saddened to see that they didn't have a lot of movies or stories that represented them.
Mhm.
And, and that showed them in a positive light as far as someone who is bisexual. And just as a parent, it just makes you sad, because I do believe, as an educator, I've been an educator for years, that when children and young people see something and they're able to see someone else doing something, or someone that looks like them or is representative of them, they're able to achieve what they want to achieve. And it's a definitely an empowering moment for them. And I wanted to try and give that.
Yeah, well, it's a ongoing theme in this podcast about like storytelling and movies, especially TV shows, representing a certain community that you relate to, and gives you confidence because you see it on television, and then all of a sudden, like I remember when like I'm assuming we're both old enough to remember this, when Will and Grace came out, right? Like it's like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, that
Yeah, it was absolutely shocking, right? When Will and Grace came out. I think it was, then there's the whole Ellen thing as well, right? That's
yeah
our generation
yeah
as to what we saw happening on TV. And I agree. I think it was the first time for a lot of people. And I was born in California, but I grew up in the Midwest. And so I think it was it was the first time for a lot of people in areas of the country that really got to see other sexualities demonstrated and depicted in just regular storytelling, which
yeah.
was, I think, fantastic.
And there's still things have gotten better and things, but there's still a long way to go, right? So basically, in terms of like the normalcy, I guess, of this community, it's like we're still on the process. But I remember like when Obama was running for president, he had to say that gays couldn't get married, right? So this is like 2007, pretty liberal guy in context in
Yeah.
America, right? So
Oh, absolutely. And I think, my daughters are off out in the world now, right? And I think, as a parent, if you are a parent or an ally for people in your life in this community, you know that there are situations that are still just very unsafe, and you still are concerned for people traveling across the country, right? Because there have been, you just read about it all the times, different situations where other people feel that their views and their perspective, they have a right to, walk up to someone and say, you're wrong, or I mean, and judge them, and it's a stranger on the street. And I just think there's still quite a long way to go in that area to make people understand that, that's wrong.
no, 100%. Well,
So
there's
hopefully
still
we'll get
like
there.
a community that basically is against it, and some of them happen to be in the government, so that's scary. Some of them happen to be in the Supreme Court, and that's even scarier, right? So but
Well, yeah, I think it's a very tough time right now to be minority, to be female with the laws that are changing consistently,
yeah.
to be in this community. I just think that it is a scary time. And I think if you live long enough, like our age and my age being definitely older, you see the pendulum swing quite a bit back and forth on rights and protecting people. But I do feel that right now is, we're in a difficult time at this point to really make sure that everyone is treated with respect.
Yeah. So I hear that you have an election coming up in a few months. So hopefully things will turn into the right side of things, or maybe the left side of things, I should I.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I don't know. I've come to believe that both sides of our party system, and I've been able to travel a little bit outside of the United States.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Our two-party system, I think, is struggling right now, is what
Yeah.
I would say on both sides.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll get it back going here in America.
Well, it's like you got to vote for the lesser evil, right? So
Yeah, no, that's definitely it. And I think that that's a sad thing when we're trying to get other people involved and get young people more involved and excited about it and know that they empower them, that they can make the change when, they see kind of the options. So, but hopefully.
all right, let's talk about your script. So you basically, in your blog interview, you also said you've written 3 scripts, 2 books, and you write a blog. When did you start writing personally? When did this writing progress start for you?
I think I've always been a writer before I even knew I was wrote in journals continuously as a child. I've just gone through a lot in my life. There's been a lot of struggles within my family, and that situation that wasn't probably real healthy and good. I've been through some personal struggles. And then in the last year, I was diagnosed with cancer as well. And so I think that just, when you're going through difficult times or traumatic situations, for me, I always turn to writing. And so to just write it out, to work through it, to find the positiveness in it, and to some way, take something good from something, because I do believe life is unfolding for us, kind of not to us. And so I think that it just takes sometimes a minute when you're going through something hard to see that bigger picture. And so for me, it's always been writing that's helped me do that. And so I've gotten definitely stronger with my writing in the last year and a half, going through my cancer journey. And it's really been a great creative outlet, that's just been, wonderful for me and given me something to focus on and stay positive and hopeful about going through this.
Oh, that's amazing. Are you okay? How are you health wise now?
Yeah, no, I'm cancer free, so it's fantastic.
Congratulations.
I still have 1 or 2 maybe procedures and surgeries I'll have to have, but it's all, good, and they believe they have all the cancer at this point, so that's wonderful news. But yeah, it definitely, when you go through things like that, right, it puts things in perspective of, what do I want to do, or how do I want to contribute to society and do something that's good and positive and put it out there. So for me, like I said, writing this script and working with a writing partner has really been about me being able to be creative and in a positive way, try and put something out into the world that might do some good and might open up people's minds that might have been kind of closed on this issue.
Well, some of the things that you just discussed are themes in your screenplay, right? Where basically your character kind of needs to grow up, I guess, right?
Right, exactly. I mean, it's everything from, the friend starting at the beginning, where she has to kind of look at her life and the choices she's made and being all alone, right, with this daughter, and what's she going to do, and some of the bridges she's burned. So you can even start there. And then our main character, like, really gets into the situation of trying to look at, well, it kind of gets forced on her, put it that way,
Yeah.
to look at the world in a different way. And I think that's really interesting because I think we all definitely go through, like the saying kind of goes, you can go through a situation with someone right next to you and you're both going to interpret it and see it differently,
Yeah.
right? We all come with all of our baggage and with our preconception. And so I think it's really good for her that her growth arc is really, she believes that she was fully wronged and she was in the right, and that might or might not be true depending on your interpretation when you know, read the script or see the movie. But what's interesting is how she is able to kind of open up, and even though she has been wronged, she can see a bigger picture and how people made the decisions that they made as well, and be open and accepting. And I think that the goal there that I wanted for this character is that her world got really small because of her beliefs and she kind of shut down, and it opens back up with her opening up her acceptance of other people and forgiving people who have made mistakes.
Well, that's a very noble theme that you have there. It's like it makes a lot of sense. Is something, where did you kind of come with, because thematically what you just described is amazing, and it's very easier said than done, I guess, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that it came from, like, I had gone through a hard divorce. And I think, like I said, having gone through, you know, and being diagnosed with cancer, I just think when you start going through some difficult things and you get a little bit away from it, or you're stopped and you're able to see a bigger picture, it doesn't become about, oh, why is this happening to me? It becomes about, how can I use this? How can I grow from this? Because I want the rest of my life and what I do going forward to mean that much more. So I think, again, it's about opening up. And I think I think everyone, when you get to be in your 50s, I mean, boy, everyone's made mistakes, right? You look
Yeah.
back and you go, gosh, that I could have done that different, or wow, I wish I would have changed how I did that. And it's not to live in regret, but it is to open you up to understand that everyone's doing the best they can,
Mhm.
and that judging people or cutting people off or shutting people out for a mistake they might have made, I mean, sometimes, you know, there are extreme situations where you need to do that, but a lot of the time, what most people really need is some type of an acceptance, or sometimes at least of an understanding of how they got to where they are. And that's what I wanted to give my characters, is that it's messy, right? It's not black and white, easy decisions. There's different perceptions, there's different things that come into play into why people make decisions, and they might not always make the best one, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're a horrible person because of a mistake that they've made.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, it's amazing. Yeah, so you mentioned that you work with your writing partner Wes, but this one's your script, I guess, right?
No, this was Wes and I wrote this together.
Okay.
Yeah, Wes Lofgren. He's my writing partner on this script. We wanted to write together. He has gone to AFI Film School out here in California, and I was there too when I became a script supervisor,
Okay.
when I worked in the entertainment industry before I stopped to have my kids on and focus on my family. And we actually went to college together at Carleton College. So we always had wanted to write together and try and collaborate and do things. So we just started this years ago as kind of an experiment to see, well, do our writing styles even mesh? Like, how will we work
Yeah.
together? Like, we had no idea. And so it was just this fun little experiment we started with. And we would go back to the script kind of off and on between our busy normal lives, right? And we just kept working on it. We just kept coming back to it. And that's how we got to where we are with the script, and we finally got it done. But we did it slowly and intermittently over time, which isn't the way I know a lot of people write a script. They usually kind of focus on it, sit down and spend those months doing it. And we did this one differently, and it was really good. It was a really big growth experience for both of us in learning how to collaboratively write together in a way that was really positive.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, no, and so basically, what is you guys do you guys sit together? Do you guys work separately? and then merge together late? Like, what's your process?
We did at the beginning work together, like laying it out and kind of going through, and we would be on the phone together. And so, and we did meet a couple times as well, but mostly it was on the phone because we would do it like at weird times when my kids were sleeping or working or he was off of work. And so we then kind of went through and did scene by scene together, and we got kind of a base. And then from there, we kind of took, things that like, wait, I really want to work on this scene. I don't like this scene and what we're doing. I'm going to take this and write it and then send it over to you for feedback. So then we started to do that with different sections of it, which was really interesting. And we really did find different strengths in us, which was very interesting. I think Wes is much better at writing dialogue than I am. I do think there's a male female thing going on there as well. I talk more. I explain things more.
Yeah.
He cuts it down much more, just like gets to the point. And I just think his dialogue choices are excellent. I'm much better at an overall, the scope and the arc of the character and making sure they go through those emotional moments and that growth and have those aha kind of moments. So we did find our different strengths, which I think really balance each other well.
And how did so you guys met way back in the day? Not way back in the day, but way back in the day at school. How did you guys get back together? How did the relationship get back together?
Wes moved out to California. He had lived in Chicago for years and he
Okay.
moved out to California. And so that's where we, kind of reconnected and started, talking about this. And again, we were slow to move because we were both working on our own lives, which, you can do this. That's the cool thing, right, about writing is you can do this at any time. And so we were both very involved in each other's lives, but saw each other here and there and just really focused on he was focused on his career. I was focused on my kids and the family. And so we just had to do it slowly, bit by bit.
Mm-hmm. So it seems like before you took care of your children, this is a part of you. Like it must have been a bit scary to come back to this if after a little bit of time raising your kids.
Yeah, I mean, I knew what I wanted to do from a pretty young age growing up. I knew I wanted to come out to California and work in the entertainment industry. And I did. I came out here with another job in advertising and then, saved up enough money and walked away from it and started like as a runner getting coffee on sets, right? In the 80s or 90s, I should say. And I just knew that was what I wanted to do. And I was very lucky to meet some fantastic people pretty early on, starting out, that were working for James Cameron. So my, experiences were on pretty big, Terminator 2, True Lies, those type of movies for James Cameron, that I loved working on and met so many incredible people. And then I became a script supervisor. And that was just phenomenal, working directly with some really cool directors. So that's what I did for years. And then, then I walked away because I couldn't I was working about 20-hour days, right? 18-hour days,
Sure.
which is what you did back then.
Yep.
Yeah. And
Still
so
do
I
now.
walked,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I couldn't do that and raise my kids.
Yeah.
So I had to change it. So my ex-husband and I at that time, though, he was working on for the Ally McBeal show. So that's how long ago, if anyone remembers that show.
Yeah.
Of
course.
But he was working on David and all of his shows. And so we kind of had a small little business going on the side while we were raising the kids that was doing signage and stuff for movies while I was at home. So that's what we did. And then, thinking of coming back and walking back into this industry once my kids were, set and on their way. It's hard, right, to jump back in because it's changed so much. Everyone's moved on. It's hard to do that. But writing is one way that I felt I could have a good contribution.
Yeah, what's funny coincidence is that I'm from Niagara Falls, born and raised, and so is James Cameron. So
yeah.
so we have that connection of the Niagara Falls connection.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, he's changed a lot. He's grown a lot. Talk about having an arc, right? I
Yeah.
think knowing him back in the day when he was young and struggling and putting out these movies and stuff like that. I think he had the sets were probably not, not at the level they are now as far as being
Obvi- Well, he's
I
creating
don't know,
worlds.
opening, yeah,
He's in New
opening,
Zealand.
welcoming.
He's in New Zealand building like like basically communities, right, for his film sets, right? So
Yeah, and I think he's just changed who he is as a person and grown, which I think again is wonderful. That's the arc that all of us do is hopefully we get better and open up and find better ways of doing things. I mean, there was a lot of yelling back in the day
sure, I
when
think
I
he
was
probably
on
still is
sets and
now. Yeah.
yeah, and I don't think there's hopefully as much of that now on sets and there's a little bit like we don't have to be crazy. We can be really creative, but we can still be wonderful people.
So I just watched True Lies maybe 6 weeks ago.
Yeah.
It's I think the 30th anniversary is coming up. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it's
30 years.
nuts.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
remember watching that film when I saw it at the theater. I was like a teenager, and I thought it was fantastic. And it still holds up today, which is because there's really no almost no CGI in the film. No, like especially after his other film, Terminator 2, which is all CGI. And
Yeah.
he just made a straight like kind of James Bond action film. I'm surprised they never made a sequel of that film. It's actually pretty great.
Yeah, I was surprised too. I mean, I think the feeling on the set from Jamie and from Arnold and from him is like really a collaborative and strong, you know what I mean? I think him and Arnold at that point coming away from the Terminator movie, right, had a good rapport and had a
Yeah,
really strong, relationship. And yeah, it was really good. And they were very, and my understanding from Jamie thing too, I think was that she felt very good on that set. So I just think the feeling overall on that set was really positive. He had a lot of the same people with him from Terminator that he had really strong relationships with. So there were obviously issues, in many parts of Florida where we were as far as getting permits and,
sure.
what we could do when and how we work all that out. And but I was working specifically at that point with Stephanie Austin, who was one of his producers, and it was a wonderful experience for me. I mean, my memories from that and the crew was just phenomenal.
Well, Arnold Schwarzenegger talks about it in his book. He loved it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. As I said, like I think there was more drama and kind of that yelling and crazy creative factor thing that I think James had at the beginning of his career that wasn't there as much in True Lies. And he was just calmer. And I just think the crew really gelled together really well.
yeah, it still holds up. Well, I don't know if the last time you've seen the movie, but it's pretty great. It's like yeah, because it's like if you don't put all the special effects in there, not that Terminator 2 doesn't still work today, it still does, but it's just a straight up action film, right? So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I saw that in the other film I worked on, which my dogs were actually in. Like one of the opening scenes was Long Kiss Goodnight.
I filmed that
And
in Toronto. Yeah.
yeah, yes, exactly. And I lived up there. I had a house there when I was shooting there. So production, so it was wonderful. That was also a really good experience. And both of those films my daughter saw, and so they had pulled them out or something, or we were looking at them, and I got to see parts of him again, and it was pretty fun.
That was Rennie Harlan, right? Who directed that film?
Yes. Yes, it
Yeah.
was Rennie. And he brought his own, he had a very different, it's very interesting, different director's perspective, but he was a much more, we're a family, we're inclusive, we're all together type of, attitude from the very beginning. Do you know what I mean? And it was very interesting with him on his set. And he was lovely. Samuel Jackson was just an amazingly lovely, kind person as well.
Because he was married to her at the time, right?
He was married to Gina
Yeah, Dee
Davis.
Davis, yeah.
Yeah, and they were together. She went through something. I'll tell you that. Both her and Jamie, speaking of the women, and boy,
Yeah.
what they had to go through. The shape that those women were in for both of those movies, especially Gina, I mean, because she's supposed to be, right, this fighter and this, whole spy character, but she just was I mean, the diets they were on, the workouts they were doing,
Yeah.
it was insane. I mean, they were, both of those women are really strong, amazing, and very kind women.
So another connect, like fast forward like 4 years, Driven. I was a production assistant on Driven, which Rennie
Really?
Harlan directed in Toronto. Yeah, so it's going
Yeah.
way back. So
Yeah. And see what, how was that experience then with
it
like
was
him?
it was my first time ever being on like a tier one, like super like high budget film, right?
Yeah.
Like it was a difference between TV and that film where like there was like major catering and it was like there was always amazing lunches and like
Yeah.
you work crazy hours and he was kind of a madman sometimes, right? Like just to
Yeah.
be perfectly honest, like he was trying to get these shots and I don't think the film really works. That's my subjective opinion now, but it was very busy. It's a very busy film, and I think Stallone directed it, so I got to meet him. And he was like,
Nice.
the reason why I'm here is because of Rocky when I was a kid. So it was like a kind of like a full fledged moment for me. So,
Yeah.
but
I think there was something back in the day about that that I think, thank goodness, has changed, but was that whole crazed, I, to get what I want, I
yeah,
have to be so crazy, yelling, intent. Do you know what I mean? And I think that behavior is not necessary. I mean, I do think, that there's better ways to do it. And I do think that it's changed, I think, in the industry. But yeah, I do think James and Rennie both gave a little of that energy, of that, right, kind of, it's my way and I have
yeah,
to
the
get this vision
auteur.
out.
Yeah, I'm an
Yeah.
auteur, kind of like this is my film, not everybody's film, right?
Yeah, yeah, I do think that was a part of all of it, which I think was really good for. I think one of the best people for James was Arnold, because I do think Arnold was more about the crew. And I know like he fought for us, I know, on to get like a Christmas party at one point when we were on Terminator, and just like, we're going to thank people, we're going to be kind to people. And he did little acts like that, which James would have never done. Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
and so I think that he got that balance a little bit from him, which maybe Rennie didn't get.
Well, because they come from the generation of the 90s, right? Where like the auteur, like this is my, like, Scorsese and freaking, and they're like, this is the movies they watch, and they were told that these guys' films, right? Like it's like you're my pawns. I'm gonna, I'm not trying to say that they're all like that, but it was like that was the kind of the mentality, right? So
Oh, I think it definitely was. And I think the ego factor was huge
yeah,
there. Do you know what I mean? And I don't think there was the thought and respect given to how you treat people, and that it doesn't have to be two separate things. It
yeah,
doesn't be that, it doesn't have to be that I have a vision and it's me against the world type of thing.
yeah.
It doesn't have to be that way. It can be a very positive, collaborative, situation. And I think it's taken, I think having, I will say, I think having a lot more women in positions of power and creativity has helped balance that. I do think that there's a level of calmness, I think, that comes in with that.
Yeah, and I think it's more, yeah, and you're 100%. I think you're 1000% correct, especially the producer role, right? Where like, and they have to rein these people in. You can't work in 20 hours. Like the crew
Right.
needs some sleep, right? Like we're gonna go over budget. It's like let's just get the shot off and stop doing 50 takes, right? Like it's like, you know what I
Right.
mean? It's like like because it's more, but then those guys, like especially Cameron, he's in charge. He's the producer, he's the director, so he's the guy who's like, and then he always tells the studio to F off, and but he's proved it. He proved it with Titanic, right? Like,
Yeah.
look what I can do. So like he put his money where his mouth is, and he proved to be successful, right? But I think a lot of people did it. A lot of directors failed at that tyrant, because including Rennie Harlan. They eventually caught up to them, right? So
Yeah. And
yeah,
I just think that it's with anything, any industry and anything.
yeah,
And this is why we have to be so inclusive of all different types of people, because what happened is it became this thing that it has to be done this way. Oh, I was success. Like success was almost the problem, right? Because when
yeah,
someone is like that and yelling on set and, it's my way or the highway, and, it's me against everyone else. And
yeah,
I have to be like this to actually make it happen. People start to believe that that is the only way it can be, because someone has done that and been successful with it. And so I think the success even gets to be the problem. So I think
100%.
finally, as more people have been allowed to have their voices heard, it's been said, no, this doesn't have to be this way. I can go in and be very quiet and very calm and direct and be, and be fine and be very successful. I can still have my vision completely come to fruition. You know what I mean? And I think that you just have to allow all different people from all different communities into the conversation for you to see a different option and a different way. And as we do that, it's just such growth for everyone involved.
100%. Well, thank you for your time. It seems like you got some stories to tell, maybe even a book to write about this experience.
Oh, there you go.
No, because I think you're 100% correct. It's a different. The movies are different. It's a different era, right? So like, it's almost like the Netflix producers are like the controllers of the keys in a sense, right? So
yeah. Well, now, and they're doing documentaries on everything, right? Now it's all behind the scenes, which is really, really interesting, right? I think they just did behind the scenes F1 and now behind the scenes Tour de France. And I think they want, like, that's the whole interesting place now. But again, as long as we're seeing people being real and we're inclusive of all different types of people, I support it.
Yeah, well, they've been doing that in sports for a long time, right? Like behind the scenes of the football team, and then they're jumping on that bandwagon. Yeah, well, really great talking to you. Amazing experience. I'm gonna watch Long Kiss Goodnight again. I'm gonna see if that film, because I remember they were filming that in Toronto, so I'm gonna see that. And yeah, Gina Davis kicks some butt in that film. So
yeah, she does. She does. And then the two dogs at the very beginning running out. They're mine.
Your dogs?
Yeah.
That's amazing. They get
I
credit.
was hiding behind a car, like with treats when they let them go to find them. So
they get their actor card for that, or their slate card.
Yeah. I wish. A little moment.
All right. Well, nice talking to you, and let's talk again when we showcase another script of yours in the future.
Oh, thank you so much. This has been wonderful. I appreciate your time.
Thanks.